Hey y'all, how's it going? My name is Reverb, and welcome back to Architectural Adventures. In this episode, we have a really big project on our hands. As you can see behind me, I've already demarcated roughly the area that we're going to need, just to make sure we even had enough space for this area right here. We are going to be building Diocletian's palace. Now, this was the palace built in Croatia from the Emperor Diocletian. I truthfully do not know too much about him, but he was the Roman emperor between 284 AD and 305 AD, so a late-term emperor. Looking at this photo, you can see that this palace is massive, and it's also very dense and detailed, so we have a lot on our plate today. As you can see, like I said, I demarcated this area behind us. This is a 100 by 100 grid. And I think that this is roughly the amount of space that we'll need. I estimated this based off of the photo. I just basically counted along the wall all of the windows and the gaps in between each window and assigned each one roughly 1 block length. So I got around 100 if you count it all up. For the sake of convenience, I'm assuming it's a perfect square. Kind of looks like it just based off of the number and spacing of the towers on the outside of the border. The way I'm looking at this is I'm starting from the outside and then working inwards. We can always make the buildings smaller or merge buildings if need be if we run out of space inside. But the outside is our scale of reference. Now you can see in the photo that one of the sides of the palace is abutting water, and I think we can translate that perfectly right here because we have the river right here, and unlike these other sides that kind of slope down with the river, this is cliffside against even a taller cliffside, so we're not really going to be expecting a bridge. Maybe we could include a bridge that would go over it, but this will be a good side for that waterfront wall. I'm not too worried about the corners falling into the water though, because these corners will be the corners of towers, and especially in medieval times and prior, like the Roman times, the support towers will extend all the way into the water, and the foundation of the building will conform with the terrain to keep everything level. If you look at the wall of the picture, you can see that there's a very distinct gradient of a dark yellow, almost brownish in some areas, to a lighter cream color. So we'll try our best to replicate that. I admittedly am not the best at gradation and colors like that, but we are now in the most recent update, the Sulfur Cube update, and so we have this vibrant yellow block sulfur to use for our gradients. So this is just me experimenting with the colors, see if this is working out well. So we start with the very dark, what is it called? Polished sulfur, and we have a bit of bricks scattered about, and then we move into regular sulfur, then birch logs, to endstone to sandstone. So hopefully, I'll try to work on this to make it a little better, but from a distance, I think it works just right. Well as I can get it, at least. Before we actually begin the great building of the palace, we're first going to have to clear out this area. So I can only think of one really fun way to clear out all of these trees. There's nothing like starting a forest fire to really get you excited for a new build. Right, guys? Now, this looks downright ugly, but we're going to trust the process. It'll look nice and clean eventually when we replace and gut out all this stone. Now it's time to start the towers. We're going to start over there. For the towers, we're going to go 7 by 7 for the 4 corner towers. This is because you can see on the top row, there are 3 windows, so 3 blocks wide, and then 4 gaps, ones in the middle and then the ones on the outside. So you got 7. Alrighty, so this is the layout of one of the sides of the wall, and we'll just duplicate it on every side. And here we are. So this will give us a good frame of reference on the size of our build. Like I said, this wall is pretty flat compared because it'll be the seafront wall. And now we can get rid of this red and white border because we don't really need it anymore. Here is the outer wall. I think generally finished. We're obviously going to add in the windows in a minute, but I just wanted to stop here and show you the progress I've made so far. There's so much going into this build. There's going to be so much stuff inside going on. So I think it'll just be more convenient for you and for me to just kind of do some time skips and just jump over some stuff and check in every once in a while. So here's the outer wall. In the build, there's red roof, so I'm using the new cinnabar block as well. Sure, there might be another color that could work better, a different block, but I might as well use the new block now where it works. Like I said, this is the outer layer of the wall. We are now going to jut inwards a bit because in the photo you can see you can actually walk through and around the wall and actually enter into the towers through the wall itself. And so we'll add in doorways and all that stuff. And with that, let's flush out the wall a bit more and add in some more details. Like let's add in all the windows and whatnot. Aw, what a cutie. Alrighty, I think now is a good time for a quick check-in to go over the progress I've made so far. The outer wall is, for all intents and purposes, minus a couple details we'll add later, completely finished. So let's dive in and see what we've done so far. You've already seen the outer wall and the texturing we've done with that, but now we've included windows onto all the towers and the walls. We used gray concrete as a backdrop, so we don't have to actually fill in what's going on, and it'll look less breezy and like a cage rather than an actual room. We built in the inner version of the wall, so you have a walkway around the entire wall. The gate entrances all have the open spaced square for great sunlight. On the inside of the wall, we have our sloped roofs down, then a layer, then more roof, then another layer. Windows poked in between everything on the top row, and arches on the bottom. I've also added the 2 archways that you see on each of the gate entryways. I also wanted to get a little fancy with the actual gateway itself. Unlike what the photo shows of just a typical Greek or Roman arch, I went a little fancy because I'm thinking, this is a palace, this is something grand. So you start with just a classic archway entrance on the outside. The dirt path transitions into packed dirt, and we might change what the actual roads and the flooring will be for the interior of the palace, but for now I think I'm going to go with packed dirt, or packed mud I should say. You go through a regular archway, but then as you enter you see this grand archway that's highlighted in white, so it really stands out and it just lifts your eyes upwards and you're like, whoa, I'm entering into a palace, something grand. Alright, and that is the outer wall, like I said, pretty much done. And now we get to turn into the interior. Now, the interior has a couple of quirks to it. It's, as you can see, very densely packed, and the scaling, now that things are more built out, I'm realizing is, awfully small to work with. So we're going to need to take a lot of, not just small, but a lot of creative liberties with this one. But I'm going to try my best to get the actual ethos of the picture onto our canvas, so to speak. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm first going to plot out actually the layout of the base, so just plotting down the outline for all the buildings. So let's see how that goes. Alrighty, next check-in. Let me show you all the floor plans that I've built up for our next stage of the project. I swear, these guys love to sleep against the walls here. It's so adorable. This is like the 3rd or 4th one I've seen. Okay, this is the overview. As you can see, there's been a lot of detail added so far. So let's just start over here. So we have our two square-shaped building structures, houses, I don't really know. So on the ground level, we have our pillars that will be outside jutting out from the building and the little awnings that form, and I made sure there's enough space in between. So I initially had a 3 wide road, but then I extended it out to 5 just so these things weren't just a block apart. Then you walk inside under the awning, and the building will be here. We'll have 2 entrances on each side, and it's mirrored across this road here. And then this will be our courtyard. Now, obviously, this is super, super small for a courtyard, especially compared to the image, but we really just don't have a lot of space to work with, so compromises were made throughout the entire thing. I don't like this. This is using up a lot of space, this narrow passway, what it's supposed to be, but it's really based off of the archway width, and I can't make the archways any shorter. I tried. But yeah, so maybe we can put some more details along the wall here, but other than that, this is just taking up a lot of space, and this building could really use that space, but just can't really do much about it. Now on this side, I cut out a chunk of the wall and I laid down the foundation for the central palace. Again, a little bit of a compromise. This part of the body is supposed to be the long, thinner part, and then this is the square front part that should be technically a little wider, but ultimately I tried to make it a little wider, but I could have used the space more, so I shrunk it just a little bit, just matched it. This is also more, it's still a rectangle, but it's closer to a square than I would have liked, but it's based off of the width of this. This wall will extend upwards, and we need this to be 5 wide for the garden that will be in the back. This will be the little temple area, and we'll have a garden type of thing here. And then this is a little tricky. I had to rotate it to fit with the entrance here. But this will be the weird octagon-shaped building that will have 2 levels. That second level will be a little smaller. I've not laid out what will go on these stretches here yet, just because, quite honestly, I don't know what to do yet. And so I'll need to figure that out. But I wanted to knock out these first because they're at least a lot more straightforward. The big problem here is we are running out of space, and it's also pretty narrow. It's only about 7 or 8 blocks wide, and a lot of these buildings are oriented towards the center, so they are skinny and long, and we just don't have the space for it. So I think we're going to have to rotate some plots or just knock them out completely, a little bit of both. Again, taking some creative liberties, but we're trying to work with the space we have and anchor ourselves to specific points. Like, for example, this roof here, I can't move it forward to give it this area more space, because this roof is tied to this tower here, and this tower has a certain distance between this tower, and it's all mirrored across. And so how I like to build is I anchor myself to certain points, just like here, this roof connects to here, things like that. And so when you anchor yourself to specific landmarks, that's what takes up what proportions happen, scaling happens, so you really have to try to get it right, or as best you can, as soon as you can, like from the jump, so that when you get into these situations, you know what you can change and what you can't change without ruining things. And again, I went into this knowing that this was a scaled down version and that we would have to, make some cuts, make things smaller. In the image, the palace is so jam-packed with detail, and I just knew that we wouldn't be able to get it all done. But we're doing what we can, and I want to focus my attention on some of the more notable areas of the building. So when you look at the photo and then you look at our building, you'll be able to pick out the things that jump out at you. So for example, the 2 square buildings really stick out at you, and the the octagon building really sticks out at you. Things like that. And so we're making sure to include those elements, prioritizing them over some of the other stuff that we'll have to cut. And here are our RR, like a seal. Here are our two central buildings. We have the first floor and the second floor, and we have the courtyard opening in the center, although admittedly it's the most depressing courtyard you've ever seen. It's just a 5x5, so really not a lot of space. The buildings are empty, of course, and the windows are just blotted in. If I wanted to make this video even longer, then I would like flush out every interior, but if you ever want to do this on your own, feel free. Turning over here, we have our arches and statues lining it, just like in the picture. And we have this little rail barrier thing that's also featured in the photo. Now, again, like I told you, that this octagonal building had to get rotated, so it's facing this way now. We also have just plain old sandstone rather than the smooth sandstone like we've been using, because in this photo, it's very clearly made out of more of a brick texture than the smooth texture of the rest of the build. We have the two trees featured in the photo, not a lot of space, and I'm not the best at making trees, but these ones are pretty pointy and narrow. You can tell I actually have some green concrete inside to try to fill it out and make it less transparent. So I think it kind of works unless you like really pay attention. Last but not least, we have a more colorful and exciting side. Obviously, your eye is drawn to the fountain. Thankfully, now that we are in 26.2, we have the geysers, which upgrade fountains like crazy. Although I will say, I really don't like how tall it gets. I would have loved it if, like, so this is the shortest length you can go. This is a single block of water with the potent sulfur, and I would have loved this height for the central pillar, and this one is just the next level up. Like, this is 2 blocks deep rather than 1 block deep, and it's so tall as it is. Like, I think it would have been great if the side geysers were only like a block or maybe 2 blocks tall, and then this one was the height of the smallest level. But I mean, I can't change it, so we'll take it as we get it. Added some flowers to bring some color because everything was just green. We have our hedges here, and I slipped in some jungle leaves in between the 3 hedges, try to separate it just a little bit. In the photo, they are a bit rounded, and so you can see like the creases of where one stops and the other starts. And with Minecraft, you know, you can't really have that so easily, especially on such a small scale. So I thought maybe adding the jungle leaves will blend in well enough. It doesn't stand out too much, but it's just enough to try to separate it out. And lastly, we have some hedges and bushes around the temple and the temple itself. I also noticed in the photo that the roof is a different color than the rest of the roofs in the picture. It's more of a wood, like a thatched roof or something. So I went with jungle plank slabs, and I think that color works pretty well. If you think about it, we are 80% of the way done roughly, and that's incredible because this has been a bit of a work in progress. It's not the largest build in the world, but it's not the smallest either. Yeah, I'm excited to start to see it really come together. I think for the most part we are just completely done with detailing and everything else on this whole section. So now our attention turns to this final strip. So let's plot out some landmarks and shape out what buildings go where. And here we are. The central palace is complete, along with the final wall of buildings. Just like most of the buildings here, I just decided to close off the interior, but you can imagine that this would be wide open, especially up here. This would be more of a balcony section that you can look out onto the palace from the top floor here. Also, unlike the rest of all the walls and windows, I decided to add a little more detail and put in stairs as a sort of window frame. On the side, we also have windows on each row and arches for here. This building right here, I especially wanted to get in. It's my best attempt at the building with the different gables, I think they're called. You know what I mean, like the pointy thingies that jut out in a grid pattern for this particular building. And then I also have a garden here and a garden over here. Simple roof here with windows, and I included the square roof that's in the photo as well. Like I said, I had to, take creative liberties and especially reorient the building so they're all facing horizontally now, and I just picked random heights for them. I made sure, the height for this garden roof is different than this garden roof, try to make it more dynamic. And lastly, we have the final section of the wall here, which is the garden wall. If you look at the picture, there's an interesting pattern going on that I tried to replicate decently well of enclosed bubbles between the hedges. For this garden, I just have a mix of the flowering azalea and the regular ones, but here I decided to make it more intentional where the non-flowering ones are lining the garden, and then we have the taller hedges with the flowers in the middle. So you kind of you can do a little stroll through the gardens while overlooking the edge of the wall. And on the back here, we have an entrance to the actual main section of the palace, to the wall. You have the grand entrance, but also two little entrances here. And also for the other buildings, there are entry points to the wall. All right, and with that, kind of like what I was saying earlier, the build is almost finished. We're probably at 95% finished. And I say that because we have one last thing to work on, which is this back wall here. If you look at the photo, it's not just a plain wall. It's actually a arched walkway lining the entire wall, and also a little bit of a dock, so I want to include that as well. This is pretty straightforward from what I can tell. Like I said, I'm just going to open up the wall and put arches in, and we'll see how it looks. And voila! Here we are with our final addition to the build, our walkway with the arches. So let me give you a quick overview of the details. Let's actually start inside. Based off of the picture, I really squinted and it looked like it was like a checkered floor with a bit of red to it. Maybe it was supposed to be black and white. I don't really know. But I went with this. I actually started with smooth quartz instead of the spruce logs and red. But it actually just looked way too bright. Especially alongside the rest of the build. Like from a distance. It just did not look great. And in the photo, it's shadowed in, and so to replicate that darkness a little bit more, I went with the spruce, and I think it looks pretty good at a distance, especially with the rest of the build as a backdrop. That's a spoiler. We'll get to that later. But yeah, so the arches, I toiled around with the widths of the arches, like 3 wide, 2 wide. I think 2 wide is best overall because these are supposed to be more narrow, and that'll make these arches, these ones and these two, a little more pronounced. Additionally, I wanted the arches to stand out against the smooth wall. I removed the texturing, at least for now, just because I needed the arches to stand out better. And in the picture, it's very three-dimensional. Like the arches jut out. There's some indents and a level of detail that you just can't really get with Minecraft being blocks. So the compromise I made was to make the arches out of sandstone while the wall is smooth sandstone, and that way you get a nice definition to it really pops out at you a lot better. You can see where the arches are versus the wall. And of course, we added some chiseled sandstone just for a little detail, a little bit of pop. And I added a ridge of sulfur stairs underneath. Then we have our little dock here. This one was also kind of tricky because in the photo, the top surface is that white color that we've been using for the flooring, but the sides are red. So again, I compromised a little bit and used some mangrove shelf. I can't, get it on both sides and all the way around, but I think it works for what it is. And the stairs are also a little different textured color than the white. So I just use smooth sandstone. I gotta tell you, sandstone is by far my favorite block, which is weird to say. But I use it in so many builds all the time. It's the perfect color of stone for like Roman or Greek architecture, which I guess I tend to gravitate towards. Yeah, so what is a dock without a boat? In the photo there is some kind of galley boat, and I am awful at building boats. I don't think I've ever actually really tried it before. So here's my attempt at a galley. Obviously there are some parts that are better than others. I think the shape overall works well. I like the tail. The front is a little weird. In the photo, it ramps up, but it looks hollow and like a little bit of red in it. So I tried to replicate that as best as I could with slabs. If I went with stairs, it would be too tall and looked weird. Obviously, your eyes are also drawn towards the quote-unquote sails I have. This one gave me the most trouble, and I honestly don't like the solution that I came up with, but I can't think of anything better. In the photo, the sails are down, it looks like. It's just string forming the sails. So I tried leads, but I couldn't find a way to actually get it to work. Like, you need a boat or something to attach it to, and I tried to put it under the actual floorboards of this ship, or like in the water, and connect it all the way up top, and it kind of, like, I was able to get one string, but couldn't get any more, and the one string alone looked bad. And so this is what I came up with of using candles. Obviously, it looks like trash. I'm just going to admit it. I mean, let me know what you would have done, what ideas you might have, and maybe it'll help me for future builds. But for now, we're just going to go with this. The flooring, we used the mosaic bamboo, which I've never used before, but in the photo, there's a nice rich yellow color for the flooring. And at first, I was going to use regular bamboo planks, but then I saw this right next to it, and I was like, ooh, now's a good time to use it. And lastly, what I think actually works out the best are the oars. I was really nervous about the oars because I didn't know how you can get like so fine details, fine sticks pointed out, but the copper lightning rods and the end rods just fit together perfectly. Yeah, so that's my first attempt at a boat. That's pretty cool. And with that, I think I'm ready to put my seal of approval onto this build. Here's a look at it from the angle that the photo is. Let me try to get the arches into a better position. This build was I think overall tremendous success. It was a daunting task initially, but we broke it down piece by piece. I'm very glad to be able to walk you through my thought process while I completed each section of the build. Again, that's kind of why I'm doing this series, is not just, show a time lapse of me building a cool thing. Well, cool is relative, I should say, because I'm not the best builder in the world. I didn't want just some silly time lapse. I wanted to show you my thought process and how I tackle a build like this and all the other builds we've accomplished thus far. As a final note, I think that this build would not have been possible had we not just updated to 26.2. The sulfur blocks, the cinnabar blocks, and even the geyser came in clutch. A geyser for a beautiful fountain, the sulfur blocks for that perfect tone of yellow that we were looking for the walls, and a nice fluid gradient upwards with the polished and brick sulfur versus just the typical sulfur. The cinnabar blocks were the perfect shade of red that we needed. It looks beautiful. And with that, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you making it all the way. Next episode, we're going to be back at it with a new build in a new spot around this whole world. And I'm excited to see what kind of creative leaps we can make. Thanks again, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye!